The night of our family's first Thanksgiving without my brother, I stepped outside to find my neighbor dumping his trash over our fence onto my backyard. When I confronted him, my voice shaking, he smirked and said, "Maybe if your family wasn't so busy crying, you'd keep up with the yard work." I went back inside and sat down to cold turkey and silence while my mother cried into her plate. Thanksgiving used to mean something in our house. It meant warmth, food, laughter, football on TV while my dad carved the turkey and my mom yelled at my brother and me to stop sneaking pieces from the kitchen. Kyle and I would always wrestle over who got the first slice of pumpkin pie. Stupid little things, you know? But those stupid things meant something. This year, it was different. Kyle was dead. 3 months earlier, he was driving home from work. Rain hit hard that afternoon, one of those Georgia summer storms that come out of nowhere. He took the highway like always. A semi lost control. Hit him straight on. When we got the call, I remember my mom fell to the floor. Just dropped. My dad stood there with the phone still to his ear, not saying a word. I didn't cry. Not right away. I just stared at my shoes. And for days I kept thinking, he can't really be gone. I was supposed to pick him up for lunch on Saturday. But Thanksgiving came anyway. My mom tried. She really did. She cooked everything. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, the pie he liked with the extra whipped cream. She even set his plate at the table. She couldn't stop herself. Nobody really ate. My dad just sat there silent, holding his fork like he forgot what to do with it. My mom cried through most of the meal. Me, I tried. I took a few bites, but everything tasted like dust. That's when I noticed the back gate was open. Weird because it had been shut earlier, and there wasn't enough wind to push it open like that. I figured maybe the latch had come loose or something, so I got up and went outside. I was halfway across the backyard when I saw it. Frank Hensley. Our neighbor. Mid-50s, flannel shirt, beer gut, stupid ball cap he always wore even when it rained. He was standing on his side of the fence, holding a trash bag. And right as I came out, I saw him dump the whole thing over the fence into our yard. Food wrappers. Beer cans. Greasy takeout containers. All of it spilling onto the grass like it was nothing. I just stood there. He looked up at me, saw me watching, and smiled. I'll never forget that smile. Like he was proud. "What the hell are you doing?" I asked. My voice was shaking, but I kept my feet planted. Frank took a step back and shrugged. "Maybe if your family wasn't so busy crying, you'd keep up with the yard work." Then he turned around and walked back toward his porch like nothing happened. I didn't follow him. I didn't scream. I didn't even pick up the trash. I just stood there, watching him disappear into his house. Then I went back inside. Sat down. Ate cold turkey while my mom wept into her napkin and my dad finally pushed his plate away. And in that moment I knew. I couldn't let it go. I couldn't just forget it. He wasn't just dumping garbage. He was spitting on Kyle's memory. And I was going to make sure he remembered it for the rest of his life. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Frank's smug face. I kept hearing his voice. "Too busy crying." Like it was stuck on repeat. My hands stayed clenched so long I had marks from my own fingernails. The next morning, I went out to the backyard early. The trash was still there. Soggy, smelly, scattered across the grass like a joke no one wanted to laugh at. My mom saw me through the kitchen window. I knew she wanted to ask why I looked like I'd barely slept, but she didn't. She had her own pain to carry. I didn't tell her what Frank did. Not yet. Instead, I picked up every piece of that trash. One by one. I wore gloves, but it didn't matter. The stench got into my skin. I threw it all in a bag and stuffed it in our outside bin. And then I started watching. Frank's house was just close enough that I could see most of what he did from the upstairs bedroom window, Kyle's room. I hadn't touched anything in there since the funeral. His bed was still made, his posters still on the wall. I sat in his desk chair, lights off, blinds tilted just right so I could see out without being seen. That first week, I learned a lot. Frank had a routine. Every morning, out by 6:30. Coffee and smoke on the porch. Leaves for work at 7. Back around 4:15. Takes his mutt for a piss, then grabs a beer and sits out back for a while. Usually throws something over the fence if he's been drinking. He didn't even try to hide it. I caught him at it 3 more times that week. Bottles, wrappers, cigarette butts. Like he was daring me to say something. So I did something else. There was a patch of woods behind our neighborhood. Real dense. Half the kids in town used it as a shortcut, but most adults forgot it was even there. I used to go there with Kyle, back when we were kids. We made forts, played war, carved our initials into a tree we called base. I went back out there and found that tree. Still there. Still solid. That's when I got the idea. I started collecting stuff. Small things. Nothing that would make noise. Empty cans. Broken glass. A few dead branches. I wore gloves. I made sure not to leave any fingerprints. And I started slowly tossing them back, over Frank's fence, into his yard. Just a little at a time. Just enough to make him notice. The first day, he barely looked up. Kicked the stuff aside like it was nothing. By day 3, he was standing in his yard, scratching his head, muttering to himself. I smiled. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. Not even close. About 2 weeks into my little trash return service, Frank finally snapped. I watched him come outside, still in his work shirt, and spot the pile I had left, half-eaten corn dog, beer cans, crushed up cigarette box, all of it right in the middle of his garden bed. He looked around like he expected to see someone. Then he yelled, "You think this is funny?" I didn't answer. I was in Kyle's room, watching. I didn't even flinch. He stormed back into his house. Slammed the door so hard it rattled his porch light. That night, he didn't come out again. And that told me something. I was under his skin. Good. But I wasn't done. The next day, I went for a walk around the block. Just to stretch my legs, but also to do a little digging. I stopped in front of Frank's mailbox and pretended to tie my shoe. That's when I saw the envelope sticking out of the box. City Code Enforcement Department. Bingo. I waited until the mail carrier passed a few houses down, then I circled back. Not to steal it, that would be dumb. Just to see the return address. I made a note, walked back home, and spent that evening doing some research. Turns out Frank had 2 complaints filed against him for illegal backyard burning and keeping construction debris on his property. 1 more and he'd be fined. 2 more, and they'd open a formal case. That gave me an idea. Over the next 3 weeks, I helped him along. First, I dumped a small bag of bricks and busted up concrete behind his shed. Nothing huge. Just enough to get noticed. Then I reported it. Anonymously. A week later, I left a few firework casings behind his trash bins. Claimed I saw smoke and smelled burning at night. Another anonymous report. Then I waited. One day, city inspectors came. 2 of them. They spent over an hour walking around his backyard, taking pictures, writing stuff down while Frank followed them, red-faced and yelling. That evening, I saw him throwing stuff into his truck bed, hauling junk away like his house was on fire. It was working. But something happened I didn't expect. While spying from Kyle's window a few nights later, I saw someone else in Frank's yard. A younger guy. Maybe late 20s. Kind of looked like Frank but thinner, better dressed. They argued. Loud enough I could hear even through the glass. "You're not gonna dump all this on me again," the guy shouted. "I'm not your damn backup plan." Frank shoved him. Not hard, but enough that the guy stumbled back a little. "You're just like your mother. Always whining. You drank through everything. You think I forgot that?" The guy stormed off after that, peeled out in a blue pickup I hadn't seen before. That's when it hit me: Frank had a son. A son who hated him. And that was a gold mine. After I saw Frank fight with his son, I started thinking different. Up until then, I just wanted to get under his skin. Mess with him a little. But now I saw a crack, something deeper. I went to the local courthouse the next day. Said I was doing a family history project. It took a little time, but I found what I needed. Frank had been divorced twice. The second wife, Tamara, had filed for a restraining order 10 years ago. Domestic abuse, alcohol, property damage. His son, Nathan, had been 17 when it happened. I found Nathan's Facebook. Real estate agent. Lived 2 towns over. I didn't send him a message, not yet. But I kept the tab open. Back at home, I stepped things up. I dropped an anonymous tip to a neighborhood Facebook group saying someone saw Frank throwing trash into the neighbor's yard during a funeral week. I used one of my old accounts with a fake name. The post got attention fast. People started talking. He's always been rude. Remember when he called the cops on the middle schoolers selling lemonade? Someone even said their dog got sick from something thrown in their yard. Nobody had proof, but people were angry. A week later, I left one more pile of trash in his yard. Just one. But this time, I added something special: old pieces of Kyle's hoodie. I cut it up myself. He'd left it in the garage one summer, and I couldn't throw it away. So I used it. I stained the cloth with beer and ash. Made it look like a message. Frank lost it. He came banging on our door that night, fists hitting the screen door so hard it cracked. "You little shits! I know it's you! You think this is funny?" he yelled. My dad got up. He hadn't said much in months, but that night, he stood in the doorway and said, "Get off my porch!" Frank kept yelling. My mom called the cops. By the time they came, Frank was gone. The next morning, I got a message on Facebook. It was from Nathan. "Who is this? Why did you send me my dad's city citations?" I told him the truth. I didn't give my name. Just said, "Your father dumped trash on my yard the night we buried my brother. He mocked my family during our first Thanksgiving without him. I just thought you'd want to know what kind of man he still is." Nathan didn't reply. 2 weeks later, it all came down. I woke up to the sound of sirens. Lights flashing through the window. Smoke. The smell of burning plastic and wood. Frank's backyard shed gone. His back porch scorched. A fire had started around midnight. Cops said it looked like old fuel cans had caught. City inspectors showed up the next day. Turns out, Frank never cleared out the junk behind the shed. They found enough violations to fine him thousands. Nathan showed up later, helped haul out boxes. I was standing near the fence, watching. Nathan saw me. We locked eyes. He didn't say anything. Just stared. Like he was trying to decide if I was the villain or the hero. Then he turned and left. Frank never recovered from it. Lost his job a month later. Moved out by spring. Left the house to rot. Word around the block was, he went north to live with a cousin. I never told my parents what I did. Not all of it. But my mom smiled more after Frank left. My dad started mowing the lawn again. The house felt less heavy. But I still hear that voice in my head sometimes. "Maybe if your family wasn't so busy crying." And I remember that cold turkey. The silence. The way my mom sobbed into her plate, while trash rained down on the memory of her son. I didn't burn his house. I didn't light the fire. But I lit the match that made it possible. And I don't regret a damn thing.